always important to bring that question to the table. Who are the decision makers?
Yeah.
Making sure that you understand that it could be the mother-in-law, the cousin, the son. So that's really important.
Yeah.
And the other question that I ask is I ask them what their wants are and what their needs are. Okay, can we separate that? Because when they sit down and they go out looking at home, that's one bucket in their mind. Okay, their wants and their needs. And they're thinking that this is the stuff in the home that I should have.
Right.
Okay, and you have to separate those two into what they need to have in a home and what would they like to have in a home.
And put it on a piece of paper with
Tangible.
a T-bar right down the
And then
middle.
I limit them to 5. They can have as many needs as they want, but I limit them to 5 wants.
Oh, really?
Okay. And it really, I'll give you a great example. I had a lady who was in a very limited price range, okay, and we had done the wants and needs. And we went out and looked at homes, and after about 3 or 4 homes, I was checking in with her to see where she was. And she said, well, I'm definitely in my need process. I'm not going to get much of what I want, but I can get what I need. If we hadn't done that, that would have been a very frustrating buyer, and she wouldn't have transacted.
And establishing viable, my part 2 of mine is
Right.
viable. So now when clients call me up and, they've been on, I don't know, redfin.com or another real estate website that, maybe they're showing contingent listings, and, they'll email me and say, Daisy, is this viable? Well, I can explain to them that, it's already contingent in the MLS, it's not viable for you at this time, etc. The other thing I do is I make sure I carry around all my technology, because being with Zip, we are definitely a step above the rest on technology. So I'll make sure, that I have with me my iPad, my phone, my flip cam, and I will set the stage that, look, Mr. Buyer, I want to help you find a home. I definitely am not your average realtor, so I'm trying to really establish I'm not who, Joe Smo next door from wherever. So I will pull out my iPad, I'll pull out my flip cam, and I'll let them know what my YouTube channels are, and I let them know that once if you find a home that, you want some additional video on because, you labeled it an 8 and you weren't sure if it was a 9, but, instead of, going back 5 times to see the same home, well, I do a 5-minute video while I'm there, load it up to YouTube, and when they get home, they can just watch the YouTube video. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that, and they've forwarded on to their moms and dads, families and friends. I mean, I just recently had it happen where, this client had been working with 3 or 4 other agents, and I got them, and I did this, and or I uploaded the home that they were considering purchasing on YouTube, and I got home and loaded it up, and I forwarded it on to them. The very next day, it had 75 hits on it.
Nice.
And it had been posted all over Facebook, the whole 9 yards. So I was like, yeah, and it was like getting all kinds of, comments, and then all of a sudden I got a bunch of friend requests from Facebook, from, and then I got referrals from the same client, and it just, just establishing yourself ahead of the competition, because we're a dime a dozen, you got to make sure that they know you are a professional and you want to help them and go above and beyond.
So the other thing that you're doing with that is by taking the video of the home that they were most interested in, okay, when they go back, you're reinforcing the emotional connection they found in that home and making that a much more solid connection to that particular house, which is going to help you downstream when you get an escrow, then you run into the little issue of the fact that the heater doesn't work,
Well, yeah, not only that, but like when I'm at buyer consultation and I bring this out, usually my next question is, what is your comfortability level with your pre-approval? Because they could be pre-approved for $100,000 more than what they
actually want to spend.
Right. And we don't want to work down. We want to work up. So, if they're looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, around the $250 price range, we're not going to automatically, go in, $100,000 above and start looking at $300,000 and try and work down. So that these videos, while I'm taking these videos for them as well, they can, kind of remember walking through the house and keep their comfortability level at the forefront of their brain, because again, it's a nightmare when, you know, you go out with a client and they tell you, oh, I'm pre-approved for 350, you start looking at $350,000 homes, and then all of a sudden they go, well, you know, the interest rates increased, or, you know, something like that, and now you're back down to 250 or 200, or, you know, whatever it is.
It's very discouraging for them to see something here and then have to settle for something there. So.
Right.
You know, on the other hand, what the buyer consultation enables you to do, and I'll give an example with Tricia, is that she did a buyer consultation with her client. She really knows her market, you know. And so they were pre-approved for like 550, but didn't want to go above 350.
Big
Okay, so
difference.
it's huge range, okay?
Big difference in house, too.
Yeah. Well, they sat down, she did the wants and she did the needs, and she knew that they could get everything they wanted and everything they needed in the house, but it would be in the 375 to 400 range, okay? Well, if she hadn't done the buyer consultation, she'd just shown them to show homes and said, well, you can't find anything in this price range, I'll show you some other stuff. Okay, wouldn't have worked. They would have gotten another real estate agent.
No, it's trust.
But she established a trust with them. She went out and showed them 3 or 4 homes the first time in the price range that they wanted. Very disappointed. Okay, so the next time she went out, she said, you know, I know what you want, I know what you need. I think we can find those homes if you want to go a little higher in your price range. Would you let me show you some homes that are a little higher than this? They said yes, because they trusted her.
Always
Right.
ask, always
Okay.
ask.
And you know what? She showed them 3 homes, they bought one of them.
Very good.
Okay.
So that's a really good example of how effective the buyer consultation is for setting the standard, but also establishing the trust. Because if you don't have that trust, they have so many other options out there that
Right.
sometimes, you know, you can start spouting off information and you can say this and that, but if they don't take what you're saying as, you know, competent information that's coming from a professional who actually knows what they're talking about, then it's no point. You're wasting your breath, you're wasting their time. They can just go and work with anybody because they're going to get a different answer from somebody else if they don't like your answer. So they have to know that what's coming out of your mouth is they feel comfortable with that they establish you as the professional that they want to work with that's always looking out for their best interests. And when you build that rapport and you build that trust, then that's the time that you want to be able to explain the market and say, okay, well, this isn't maybe what you thought it was. And they say, yeah, thanks. We're so thankful for you. And you're like, yeah.
Well, and not only that, but also, you know, some personality types do not mesh well. So what I'll typically say to a buyer is, just to get them to the buyer consultation is, you know, there's a right way and a wrong way to you know, go about the home search. And should we decide to work together at the end, then we can go forward. Because, you know, they need to know that this is your choice too.
Also.
You know, you're not, you know, I've had clients call me up and say, I just need someone to open the door. Well, you need a tour guide, you don't need me. You know, so should we decide to work together, is a definite.
It's a good way to say that. I always say it's an opportunity for us to determine whether we're a good fit for each other.
Absolutely.
So that they feel like they have an option to say not a good fit, and I also have the option to say maybe I'm not a good fit for you.
Well, and that brings up a really great point about where you should do a buyer consultation.
There you go.
Because, you know, if Pat had tried to do that while she's showing homes, because they're trying to do a buyer consultation while you're showing homes. they're not
Rookie
listening to
mistake,
you,
rookie
you know?
mistake.
Yeah.
They're looking at the home, you know?
Not
So-
only rookie mistake, but many tenured agents'
Absolutely.
mistakes, and they're not making the type of money they could be making. So that's a great,
Exactly,
keep going
because,
with that one.
You know, the fact that she had sat down in a neutral environment, and that's very important.
I like
okay?
their home.
The
If
home
I
is
can
excellent,
if I can
yeah.
get them to let me come to their home, I do that most of the time. And that way I can look around at the environment and
So you
see.
can
Right.
get a feel of who they are, what they represent, their personality, their lifestyle. And you know what, it's a really good opportunity for you to say, what about your home that you're living in now do you really like?
Yeah.
And what about your home do you not like? Because that will help you with the other homes as well. That's a
And
good
so
one.
if you try to do it when you're showing a home, you
They're
know,
not listening to
You can't establish the trust, you can't get anything out of them, because their entire
just wanna
objective is
see
to
it.
get on to the next home.
Or just to see
Okay,
that
yeah.
home, they're not
Yeah.
listening and they're just not.
So
Yeah.
you guys, would it be recommended that they show one and then ask for the appointment?
Absolutely
Or
not.
go to the appointment and then go out?
Well, I think you should use your best judgment on that, and this is where maybe you and I like kind of differ. If you know, they've scheduled a visit and they're you know, at certain price points, typically that price point will know what their qualifying power or their buying power,
Power is.
you know, are. And then, you know, sometimes I will show up in a certain price range and show, you know, the home to build that rapport. But I think you have to use your best judgment. But I say 95% of the time, definitely buyer consultations. But, you know, lately for me, it's been 100%, but it just really depends on, you know.
Well, and on the price point thing, I'll do the same thing, but what I do is I said, we'll show the home, and let's sit down afterwards.
Right.
Okay.
So you're setting the expectation
But-
before you
We're
can
gonna
go.
sit
But
down.
you're even also, but you're asking certain questions prior to getting
Oh,
in the
yeah.
car,
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's certain things, you know, if you're asking, you know, certain questions, how, after you know, many years of experience, you just kind of,
You know.
you get a good feeling,
Right,
and
you
you
do.
know, and if you're over the million range, I'll take the chance, I'm sorry.
Well, but,
You know,
but the good point here is that some people think that buyer qualification that you're doing on the phone is the buyer consultation.
Right.
And that's not, you're just qualifying the buyer on the
Right,
phone.
right.
But
Okay, to see
there
if
is
you're
a
gonna go
time
forward to a buyer
when you have to do a
consultation.
buyer consultation on the phone if you have an out-of-town client.
Yes.
Or if you have somebody that's not in the area. So that's an opportunity that you would basically, as a last resort, do it on the phone because you don't have any other options. I always try to do a buyer consultation before we go to the home, but there are circumstances, for example, when it's getting dark early, they get off work at 5:30, you only have a half an hour window to see the home. So we'll just set up the expectation that we'll see the home first, and then after that, we're
And
gonna
then
sit
we'll
down.
do it.
Yeah, and that way you're allowing them to get their need taken care of by seeing the home, but you're also making the opportunity for them to, okay, we're gonna sit down, I wanna just go over, you know, just to get to know you, and you can get to know me, it's very casual, no obligation, that way we can see if we're a good fit for one another, and then.
but
go
you
from there.
qualify them first, definitely.
Absolutely, on the phone.
And again,
Yeah.
you're not doing the buyer consultation in the property you're
No.
showing.
Right.
You're doing it, again, in a neutral environment.
And then, like Cheryl said, sometimes when they're, you know, I've sold many homes from buyers that they were out of town.
Right.
You know, what I'll do is, you know, I will, when they do come into town, I'll meet them here at the office or wherever, and we'll kind of go through, you know, the list, and at that point, I will set those expectations, and I'll say, you know, before we actually go see homes, here's your list of homes, here's some driving directions, you know, here's my cards, you know, here's the buyer broker agreement. Why don't you drive some of these neighborhoods, and let's narrow down your list to maybe 5 or 7 for tomorrow, and we'll go and, you know, look at 5 homes. And then after you look at those 5 homes, after you've eliminated certain neighborhoods, you know,
Right.
then we can explore a little more into, you know, your wants and needs, especially if they're only here for 4 or 5 days to find
In a
a
limited
home.
amount of time. Correct.
Right, so,
Well, and
yeah.
the other thing that you get with, I've had 2 out-of-town buyers that I bought homes for that they never saw.
Yeah.
And it's because we did the buyer consultation, and here's the quote, you know, you took the time to sit down with me, and I trust you, I know you know what I want. So if you think it would work for me, let's go ahead and put an offer. And they didn't see the home till after they bought it.
Yeah.
You know, but we had built that trust because I took the time to find out what they wanted. That was what was in their mind, okay? That I took the time to find out what they
And you
wanted.
asked all the questions that probably allowed them to explain to you very specifically what they wanted and they needed, and that way they understood, okay, he understands what I need now, I trust him to.
And
do
I'll,
that.
and I always follow up all those questions with why. You want to find out as much as you possibly can from
Yeah,
those.
great point. You know, I had a client that was very interested in the yard and the layout of the yard. You know, and she found a home. I know she loved the home, and the guy loved the home, okay? But she was out in the backyard trying to go, you know. Well, by asking that why, when she said, you know, I need to have a large home, okay, and I don't want it to have all concrete, I said, that sounds very important to you. Why would you do
2
that?
Scooby-Doo dogs or something,
What
Great
happened
Danes.
is she had a lot of relatives up in Orange County, and she knew they were going to be coming down, and she had just gone to a party where there were like 30 kids, or 30 people, and 2 of the little kids had been racing, and the yard was all concrete.
Oh.
And they fell, and both of them broke teeth. okay?
Wow.
So she was very concerned with having a safe environment for the kids. So in order to sell the house,